Living the dream, my friend. I am actually, every time I come on this
Yes.
show, such a deep admirer of your sweater game. You have a
Thank you.
great sweater collection. You
Well,
really do. You are a true man of leisure,
thank you.
and you pull it off very well.
It's I have very few moves left, Jeff. You'll find out when you get to be my age. And but you haven't even seen. Hold on a minute. Wait for it. I've got patches.
Oh my God. Professorial.
Yes, sir.
Dr. Eisen,
Yes.
how are you?
That's right. Professor Eisen in the studio with the MLB insider from ESPN. How's that? Like a game of Clue. All right. Thank you. I appreciate it. What is your?
I'm sorry, I can't get over the patches.
That's it.
That's great.
I know you can't get enough of it.
I like it.
It's great.
I like it.
I've got him.
Oh my
You know,
goodness, I'm
it just
gonna be
you can't
wrecked
even
for the
you
rest
can't
of
even see
this.
him on the radio, but I feel better. Makes me sit up straighter. All right, let's jump into it here. What's your take, if there's any such take, on the Shohei Ohtani Ippei Mizuhara to do?
Here's how I see it. If you read through the 37-page complaint, and I know that you have and us reporters have, it's a pretty good case that the federal government lays out that the story that Shohei Ohtani told to the public in his statement, it checks out. And there are just a number of elements in there, whether it's the lack of communication over, thousands upon thousands of pages of text messages between Shohei Ohtani and Ippei Mizuhara, that refers to gambling. There's nothing in there about that. There are the admissions of Mitsuhara. I am a terrible gambler, he says, like multiple times. And then at the end, the whole technically, I did steal money from him. It's not an open and shut case ever because look, there could be a grand conspiracy in place here, but that conspiracy would involve Shohei Ohtani, Ippei Mizuhara, the Los Angeles Dodgers, the Los Angeles Angels, the federal government, authorities, Ohtani's agent, his accountant, his financial advisor, banks. Like there's so many different parts of this that in order for you to believe that this was actually Shohei Ohtani and not Ippei Mitsuhara, you have to believe that everyone played his or her role to a T and fooled everyone. Now, we've seen situations in life where that has happened. But the truth is, this may just be Occam's razor, Rich. The simplest thing is Ippei Mitsuhara had a gambling problem and stole money from his friend, confidant, and employer, Shohei Ohtani, and is going to go to jail for it.
Well, and that's the question I have, is the ripple effect, if there is any. Because if let's just say I'm Rob Manfred, and the commissioner of baseball, I'm sure ready to get the green light from the federal government to see that everything is, T crossed and I dotted, to just basically say we're moving on here. There's nothing against Shohei Ohtani, case closed. I would definitely try what you'd call the Players Association to see how we can look into all interpreters to make sure that everybody does have another avenue of communication with his representation. Would you call the representatives?
Right.
Like how would you make sure that a bad lieutenant interpreter doesn't sully the game and tarnish any of the major stars international of this sport? How would you do that? Right?
Yeah, I think due diligence and background work is paramount in these sorts of things, especially when you're talking about a forward-facing person like the interpreter. But I think ultimately, like the lack of communication or poor communication comes back on Otani's camp, does it not? Like if you have a guy who's going to be signing for $700 million, I understand your desire to go and trust the person who's there, who Shohei Ohtani himself trusts, but there sometimes needs to be an additional layer of protection, and that's what was lacking here. That's why when they went and asked him about the bank account in question, Ippei Mizuhara said, Shohei wants to keep that private. And there was nothing that they could do to go back to Shohei and say, hey, do you really want to keep this private, and why? Like, we're not trying to push too much, but this is something that's important. And a lot of money is going into there. So do you know what's going on with that money? If those conversations had happened, Rich, none of this would be as big as it is. But because those conversations didn't happen, you got to look back on it now, if you're anyone around baseball, and say, okay, how can we prevent the same sort of thing from happening to us?
Yeah, I guess like that's the moment, right? That because any conversation you do have with Ohtani like that, however, had to have Mizuhara in the room, and he's the one doing the interpreting, unless Ohtani does understand enough English to get to the gist of the question from very concerned-looking representatives of his that he also trusts. So I guess that's also another question for you, Jeff Passan, is how much English does Ohtani understand, and is he one of those bubble-type guys that would just go rake, go pitch, figure everyone else is just handling everything, and not notice $16 million missing from his direct deposit Artie Moreno account? You know what I mean?
Sure. I'll answer the latter question first, because I think that's very pertinent here. Yes, I can 100% see a scenario in which he doesn't check his bank accounts because he's extremely wealthy and money is not of a concern to him, really. He's not the person who's going out and getting all kinds of material things. That's just not his style. If you look in the complaint, the government investigators say Ohtani had not logged into that particular account under his ID in years. So if you want to accuse him of something here, you can accuse him of naivete. You can accuse him of being surrounded or surrounding himself with the wrong people. You can accuse him of not having the sort of financial literacy necessarily that somebody is going to have when they have that much money coming in. But from the evidence, you can't accuse him of gambling because there is no compelling evidence toward that. In terms of the first question, this is one of those situations where my second answer went so long I forgot what it was. So you're going to have to remind me of what the first.
Does he speak English?
I was filibustering so hard there. I was trying.
I'm sorry. No. Does he understand? Does he understand enough English to potentially, if there was that moment where agent, bookkeeper, financial advisor, CPA, all in the room, all in Nez Balelo's office, looking right at Ohtani with Mizuhara sitting there as his interpreter. And they basically say, there's some account that Ippei tells us you don't want us to have eyes on, and we're really concerned about that. Would he understand that to the point where Mizuhara could basically say, they just want to know, how's your dog? And he would just go, oh, yeah, everything's okay, right? Like, so that's the question I was asking at first.
Yes. Let me give you two examples here. Example number one, I don't know if you saw Sunday Night Baseball last night, but Shohei Ohtani was standing there talking about his shoes and talking in really good, if not perfect English. The second one at the World Baseball Classic last year, after that final at bat against Mike Trout, that incredible strikeout that he had on one of the nastiest sweepers I've ever seen. He was walking toward the press conference room, and I sort of sidled up next to him in the hallway. And as a reporter, you try and get like these, walk and talks. You sometimes get some of your best stuff there, especially when the clubhouse wasn't open at that event. And we just had a perfectly nice conversation about not just how cool that was, but how that's going to be a pitch in an at-bat that's remembered for a long time. To say that Shohei Ohtani is fluent like you or I don't think that's true. To say that he understands English well enough to both hold a conversation and be able to get what's going on in a scenario like the one you presented, yes. He gets English well enough there. And I think the way that we know that is from the story that is being told right now. Ohtani realized something was a little bit off from Ippei Mizuhara addressing the Los Angeles Dodgers clubhouse when they were in Korea. That's how the alarm went off in his head. Now, has he really been shielded this entire time from everything that's been going on? If the answer is yes, then that's a dereliction of duty from the people who are there to protect him. And if the answer is no, then there are lies going on. Either way, it's not great and not a great look for the people involved.
No, but the as you point out, just before we move on to other matters, Jeff Passan here on the Rich Eisen Show, is 9,700 pages of text messages in Japanese between Ohtani and Mizuhara that were on Mizuhara's phone that the investigators looked at. Not even a single syllable had anything to do with gambling or asking anything that might look like as a euphemism for over or under or anything. I mean, and one would think that if
considering, Rich, considering there were 19,000 bets placed,
you'd think there would be
19,000. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
You think that we all slip. You think you might slip there, right?
Once, and then the one aspect as well that was written in as an aside by the agent who was
bookie.
Yeah, well, no, the agent involved who was investigating, who was the narrator, if you will, of this affidavit, was like, if he was covering for his debts. If Ohtani was shelling out to cover for the debts, why would he let the interpreter take the winnings and put it into his own personal account? There are so many different compelling reasons in this affidavit to totally agree with the fact that Ohtani did not gamble or have anything to do with that. I've got Jeff Passan here on the Rich Eisen Show. Now let's move on to a subject matter Major League Baseball also wouldn't want us to talk about, and that is Angel Hernandez. My God, Jeff, this weekend was the latest example. He missed 3 pitches outside the zone and called them strikes 1, 2, and 3. In the Rangers-Astros game. Now, it didn't affect the final score, but it's just another example of how does this continue to happen and allowed to be gotten worse. Can you explain best you can to the viewers and listeners of this show how this keeps happening or is allowed to keep happening in baseball?
I think there's a very simple explanation. JP France's cutter is absolutely magical. I mean, how otherwise are you going to see a ball that's 6 inches outside the zone getting called a strike?
But it's not just that, too. And I know that some other umpires are, we're all fallible, right? We're all humans.
Sure.
It just seems there was another moment I saw on my feed where Jeff McNeil was asking if he had a timeout left in his at-bat, and Angel Hernandez said, timeout. And he's like, no, I was asking if I still had a timeout, and he just refused. It sort of reminded me like that Phil Luckett moment on Thanksgiving where he thought there was heads and not tails, and he refused to even ask for help. He refused to even consider that the argument was in front of him was a potential valid one that should make him rethink his thought process. It's just, it seems like a witch's brew of incompetence and arrogance that continues to get worse every year, Jeff. What happens?
Put it like that,
I'm sorry, I don't mean to lay it at your feet, but so what is the process here? Is it just that there's no way to rectify this, address it, anything, Jeff?
I mean, of course there's a way to address it and rectify it, especially when it comes to the balls and strikes element of it.
Yes.
And that's what's going on at AAA right now. It's interesting. Somebody in the game reached out to me a little bit earlier this week and said, why is it that balls and strikes are better at AAA than they are at the major leagues?
And
I had never thought of it that way. But if you think about it, right now the system at AAA includes automated balls and strikes, and especially the challenge system that's in place. I don't know if you saw Paul Skeens' last outing.
I did, and I saw that video.
Paul Skeens threw
twice.
Through two pitches that were on the corner and that were nasty and that were called balls. And he went, touches. Oh, can you do it one more time so I can see the
patches? Yes.
Thank you.
If only Skeens had the patches. But by the way, he was right each time. And how long did it take? Like seconds to rectify?
5 seconds. 5 seconds. It's easy. It engages fans at the ballpark. Like the challenge systems, it's really good. And when it comes to the big leagues, when the automated balls and strikes, robot umpires, however you want to call it, come to the big leagues, I do think it's probably going to be in challenge form rather than every single pitch being called by the automated system.
Makes sense.
And yeah, and if that's the case, and they can right wrongs, then great. And beyond that, Rich, you know what this will do? This will hold umpires accountable publicly, the same way, or in a harsher way, frankly, that they're held accountable privately right now, but they are protected by the MLB Umpires Association. And if Major League Baseball wanted to get rid of Angel Hernandez, who, by the way, sued them for racial discrimination and was embroiled for a long time in a federal lawsuit, well, that's the sort of thing that I think if you had the evidence of how many different times someone has gone and screwed up, it would be a lot easier, presumably, to oust that person from the spot.
So how soon are we going to see? Because, again, I saw the Paul Skeens sort of mashup again on my social feed this weekend. And while amidst my jaw hitting the table based on his remarkable talent for this kid in the Pirates organization pipeline right now, the two instances of him saying, no, that wasn't a ball, it was a strike. He just tapped his head, and it was immediately looked at. And I did notice the audible cheers from the crowd as they were watching the live. I guess I imagine on the Diamond Vision, for lack of a better phrase.
It's on the jumbotron.
Everybody's seeing it.
They'll put it up there, and it's very interesting. I mean, it's simple. You see a little spot right there, and then it has a trail, and then you got the box. And if it's in the zone, it says strike, and it says overturned. And if it's not, then it says ball, and the guy was going to run to first base. It's a really, really simple system that, to me, achieves a whole lot in terms of accountability. Strikes and balls are not up to umpire judgment in a perfect world. They are binary. Either a pitch is in the zone or it's not. And the way it is with the human eye, let me say this, Rich. I think Major League umpires are incredible at calling balls and strikes. What they aren't is perfect. And if perfection is what you are looking for or hoping for, that's the ideal to achieve, that you have a uniform strike zone, then an automated system is a must-have.
Well,
it's just a necessity. And if the technology supports it at this point, then what are we waiting for?
I'm not looking for perfection, because we know that that's impossible. I'm just looking to remove the outrageous misses, by somebody that just seems to get worse every year. So just to put a button on this, it's a competition committee conversation? When do we get this at the major league level?
Could be 2025, could be 2026. One thing worth noting, though, in the last collective bargaining agreement, Rich, Major League Baseball received the ability to implement new rules in 60 days rather than over a year, which they used to have, which is to say that if this offseason MLB decides to put the ABS system in play, it will be there for next year. All right. And by the way, can I just say one more thing on accountability here?
Yes, sir.
Let's say there was a challenge system in place, and that first cutter from JP France was called the ball, went like this, and it was overturned. Angel Hernandez doesn't call those next two pitches that are even further out for strikes. And so it's in the moment changing the way that guy's umpire, which is exactly what you want, right? It's a lot better than a post-game report that says this is where you screwed up.
1,000,000%. I hope we see it sooner rather than later. Before I let you go, is the A's move to Vegas a done deal, Jeff? Or did I see that there's some sort of a referendum that voters in Clark County, Nevada could say no to this? What's the scoop on this front right now, Jeff?
Is anything with the A's ever a done deal? I mean,
no, I guess not. I don't know.
No,
unless I guess Aaron Judge is going to homer in Sacramento. I guess.
Maybe that's they're really looking forward to that one.
I know.
It's there's a perception among some people that Sacramento was gung ho for the A's moving there because they are convinced that the Vegas deal is going to fall apart, because it always falls apart. They've had 20 years of potential deals falling apart with the A's. And so The idea that Vegas is done, no. Is there an agreement in place? Yes. Do they have the funding? They believe that they do. But until a shovel goes into the ground and until you see steel being moved to create this stadium, I'm not going to say a single thing about the Oakland A's becoming the Las Vegas A's, because we are a long ways off from that.
We are. So it's entirely possible they move to Sacramento, and then the Vegas deal falls apart, and then where are we left? Right? Like that's still a possibility. That's what you're saying.
I remember my one of my first internships. I covered an independent league team called the Lancaster Barnstormers. I believe they still play baseball right now, but they were just on the road perpetually. Like, didn't have a home stadium, and so they just went out on the road. I don't think that's going to happen with the A's, but the idea that they're going to be playing in a AAA stadium for the rest of time, it would be very fitting for the Mickey Mouse way that organization is run at the top.
All right, Jeff, thanks for the time. Everybody in the studio is curious. Is that an actually functioning, working Nintendo beyond your left shoulder?
Hell yes, it is. Absolutely it is. Yeah. People ask sometimes.
Yeah, what are the games? What do you got?
What are these
tapes?
games?
Yes, what are the games? What do you have?
We got Mike Tyson's Punch-Out.
Nice, of course.
Yeah,
RC Pro-Am.
Okay, right, yep. What is that?
The GOAT of games. RBI Baseball.
RBI Baseball, the GOAT of games. Yes, sir.
The original.
And of course, the original Super Mario Brothers.
Fantastic.
So for those who were curious, tune into the Rich Eisen Show and you'll get your answer.
Okay. Wow. See, I'm old school with the patches on my elbows, and you're
I'm old school with my video games.
That's right. And listen, it's great to see you in your element, sir. Certainly based on last time I believe you were on this program, or last year, you were in some sort of weird space.
Was I in a closet? Yes, I was in the closet. That was
what that is.
That was the water filtration system and an ice machine.
Oh, I thought it was some sort of Hudsucker proxy type tube communication that you just send that in there and just it would go up and you'd say, I'm okay down here. So I don't know.
You know where it was? I think it was at the All-Star game in Seattle, and there was
That's right.
Julio Rodriguez had a morning party, and I was there shaking hands, and the phone rang. I was like, oh God, forgot about this one. And so I had to hustle up to somewhere quiet.
There you go.
And quiet was the water filtration room.
Water filtration.
The 12th floor.
Hey, but at least you looked good and the water was pure, brother. You knew it. So, and I appreciate, as always, you joining the show. Miss chatting with you. Let's do it again soon. You be well.
It is a speed limit enforcement of 100 kilometers ahead of about 400 meters. It is a speed limit enforcement of 100 kilometers ahead of about 200 meters. It has been processed normally.